The 157th running of the race that stops the nation is set to be another one for the ages. 23 horses will battle it out across the 3,200 metres at Flemington for one of the world's biggest racing prizes. Stay tuned for my preview of the 2017 Emirates Melbourne Cup on Bevo B5 Productions. Hello racing fans, welcome to my preview of the 2017 Emirates Melbourne Cup. It is the race that stops the nation and this year's field is a strong one. In this preview I'll go through the chances in some depth, the whole field and odds, the speed map, my tips and my roughies. So let's get straight into it. Hartnell finished third in the Cup last year with 56 kilos, goes up to 57.5 kilos, which is the top weight in the race. Won first up in the Lawrence Stakes over 1,400 metres at Caulfield, then second to Humidor in the Group 1 Mackay Diva Stakes over 1,600 metres at Flemington, then second again in the Group 1 Underwood Stakes over 1,800 metres at Caulfield, then a disappointing ninth in the Group 1 Caulfield Stakes over 2,000 metres at Caulfield last start, but it did get bumped going down the straight, so I'm prepared to forgive that run and say it is a chance. It will be 4 weeks fresh. Almandin won the Cup last year and returns hoping for back-to-back Cups this year. Has got a good record at Flemington, winning 3 of its 5 races at the track. Has had a nice prep, coming second first up, then a dominant win second up in the Japan Association Cup at Flemington over the 2,500 metres. A touch disappointing last start in the Bart Cummings at Flemington over the 2,500 metres, coming fourth. But put that aside, it is a big chance to go back-to-back, especially with Frankie Dettori taking the ride. Humidor won the Australian Cup earlier this year. This prep it won easily in the Group 1 Mackay Diva Stakes at Flemington over the 1,600 metres. Third to Winks and Ventura Storm in the Group 1 Turnbull Stakes at Flemington over the 2,000 metres. Then fifth in the Group 1 Caulfield Cup over the 2,400 metres. And then surprised us all with a bursting finish to challenge the great mare Winks and come runner-up to her in the Group 1 Cox Plate. Blake Shin keeps the ride, and if this horse can run out a 3,200 metre distance and run like it did in both the Mackay Diva and the Cox Plate, then it is a big chance. Tiberian has won 4 of its last 5 races, and its last 2 races have been won in quality group races in France. Has not raced since August, so it will be very fresh and does have good first up form. Marmello won the good form reference for the Cup, which was the Group 2 Prix Cagoule at Deauville over the 3,000 metres. A race that's been won by Protectionist and American in the lead up to their Melbourne Cup wins. Came 6th in the Caulfield Cup, was an impressive Melbourne Cup trial. Also runs in a lot of 3,000 metre races and does very well over that distance. So the distance should suit this horse. Redcard came a disappointing 5th last start in the same Group 2 race that Marmello won over the 3,000 metres, is undefeated over the 3,200 metre distance, but is coming out of barrier 24. Jonas Vermeer has been very impressive in its last 2 starts, coming a strong second in the Caulfield Stakes over 2,000 metres, and then an unlucky third in the Caulfield Cup over 2,400 metres. Hasn't won beyond 2,000 plus. Max Dynamite has only ran 4 times since its second place in the 2015 Melbourne Cup. Won last start in August over the 3,400 metre plus distance and has won once over the 3,200 metre distance, but came second 4 times over the distance. Big Duke earlier this year came third in the Group 1 Sydney Cup at Randwick in its only run over the 3,200 metre distance. It's coming off a 4th in the Moonee Valley Gold Cup where it was held up. Has good Group 1 form in 4 runs over the 2,401 plus distance. It has won 2 and placed in 1. Boom Time was a surprise winner of the 2017 Caulfield Cup. Failed earlier in the year in its only attempt over the 3,200 metre distance on a heavy Sydney track. Has won 2 of its 3 runs at Flemington. Last horse to do the Caulfield Cup and Melbourne Cup double was Ethereal in 2001. Wall of Fire was strong to the finish line last start to claim second in the Herbert Power Stakes at Caulfield. Runs lighter in the Cup from that run. However, it has had 2 runs over the 3,200 metre distance and has failed in both of those runs. The highest distance it has ever won over was the 2,937 metre distance. Thomas Hobson finished second in the Doncaster Cup over the 3,600 metre distance last start. Out of its 5 runs over the 3,200 metre distance, it has won 2 and placed in 1. Will have no problems running out the distance and runs with a lighter weight. Joe Moreira on board. Rekindling won the Curragh Cup 2 starts ago in July, and its last race was a 4th in the Doncaster. Has impressive English form. Emily Starr won the Bart Cummings 2 starts ago, which is a race that Almandin won last year before winning the Melbourne Cup. Its latest run was in the Caulfield Cup, where it came 11th, has won 1 and placed in 1 out of its 3 runs at Flemington. I would forget the Caulfield Cup run and go with its run in the Bart Cummings if you're looking to pick this horse. Time now to have a look at the full field and the odds for the 2017 Group 1 Emirates Melbourne Cup, which is being ran on Tuesday the 7th of November, 3 p.m. at Flemington. You can watch all the action on 7racing.com and Sky Racing 1. And, well, the favourite, I reckon the favourite is going to change a couple of times as we get closer to the actual race, but Almandin is the current favourite at $9.50. You can see Marmello is basically joint with Almandin on odds. Humidor is at $10. Jonas Vermeer is at $11. Wall of Fire is at $14. Red Kindling is at $15. We then have Max Dynamite at $16. Thomas Hobson at $19. Emily Starr at $21 as well as Redcard. We also have Big Duke at $23. Boom Time is at $31. The Caulfield Cup winner, of course. We then have Hartnell at $31, which is pretty big odds for a horse who came third in the race last year. Tiberian is at $34, probably the most in-form horse of them all, I reckon. Ventura Storm is at $35. At $41, we have Nikita, who is actually the first Scottish runner in the Melbourne Cup. Libran is at $51. Single Gaze, a Canberra horse, is at $61. Kathy O'Hara taking the ride, did beautifully in the Caulfield Cup. The 3,200 metres is a little bit of a concern for me, though. Who Shot the Barman was a scratching this afternoon. I'm recording this on a Sunday for a Monday upload, and Who Shot the Barman was just scratched just in time for me to record, so lucky I got that scratching through here on the preview. Sis Montaigne is at $61, of course. Won the Lexus on the weekend on Derby Day, of course, at Flemington to put itself through to the Melbourne Cup, of course. US Ranger at $71. Wicklow Brave also at $71. Bondi Beach is at $91. And then Gallant is last of all at $151. So that is the field and the odds. Like I said, I reckon the favouritism is going to change a couple of times as we get closer to the race. It's going to be very interesting to see who goes into the race favourite. Time now to have a look at the Melbourne Cup speed map, and there's no surprise that Sis Montaigne will head up the field early, as well as Gallant. We also have Boom Time out there to start things off. There's no surprise there. Max Dynamite you can see on the inside. Single Gaze I reckon will be up there as well. Hartnell is actually up there in the front runners early there on the speed map. And we also have Marmello, Humidor. No surprise, Humidor is going to be at the back. I reckon that's probably a fair assessment. There will be towards the back, going to the first bend and then up the back of the course. You can see that Wall of Fire and Ren Kindling is way at the back there on the speed map. So that is the speed map for the Emirates Melbourne Cup of 2017. Okay, time now for my tips for the 2017 Emirates Melbourne Cup. It is a very strong field this year, it must be said. It took me a while to get my selection sorted, but I think I finally got my selections, and I'm going to take a bit of a risk and go with Humidor to win the 2017 Emirates Melbourne Cup. I was very pleased with its performance in the Maccabi Diva earlier this prep, and then its run in the Cox Plate was sensational. Did not expect it to do that at all. Blake Shin keeps the ride, who has been in fantastic form. There is a question mark over its 3,200 metre distance running. Of course, it hasn't ran that distance before. We saw it in the Caulfield Cup, and it couldn't quite run that 2,400 metres, but I'm prepared to take a punt and say that if Humidor can run like it did in the Maccabi Diva and also the Cox Plate, then it can win this race. I liked how it actually ran that race, especially the Cox Plate, where it was kind of on Winx's tail for the majority of the race up the back. It got some cover and was able to finish with Winx a bit closer to any other horse really in the last, couple of years. It's got a lot of speed. If it can get some cover, then I think it can win this year's edition of the Melbourne Cup. I'm taking a bit of a risk. I'm going with Humidor, but I've been very, very excited and very pleased what it did last start in the Cox Plate and also in the Maccabi Diva. I must say that I wasn't too keen on Humidor before the Cox Plate, but I think the Cox Plate has actually really kind of made me realise that this horse is a real exciting one. And let's not doubt Darren Weir, because he's putting Humidor in the race to win, and it's definitely in with a chance. So Humidor, if it can run out the 3,200 metres, and if it can run like it did in the Maccabi Diva, the Cox Plate, it can win the Melbourne Cup, and I think it will do just that. So Humidor first for me. I've gone a late runner in, or a late entry into the Melbourne Cup for second, and that is Thomas Hobson, who actually replaced John Snow, who was ruled out of making the Melbourne Cup on Saturday. I've been really pleased with the form line of this horse. Finished second in the Doncaster, as I mentioned, and is running out a lot of distances, not only at the 3,000 metre mark, but beyond that, beyond the 3,200 metres, beyond sort of the 4,000 metres. And I saw Heartbreak City last year and thought that that was a good chance because of the distance it was running. It was running that sort of distance coming into the Melbourne Cup. I like looking at horses who are running over the 3,200 metres, running beyond that distance. I think if there's a horse coming into the Melbourne Cup that can run beyond that, then I think it's a good chance, because we know for a certain that the horse can run out the distance. So I think Thomas Hobson will be there in the finish, and I think it will come second, and it's at good odds, I think, as well. And of course, a late entry into the Melbourne Cup, of course. Now, third, I've gone Mamelo. It should be there in the top three, I reckon. Like I said, it won a good race, a good form race coming into the Melbourne Cup, which was the Prix Cagoule. Of course, Protectionist Americaners used this race to actually win their own Melbourne Cups. I think Mamelo will be there in the finish. I was very impressed with its Caulfield Cup performance. Of course, that was a Melbourne Cup trial. It did very, very well. Huey Bowman on board. I reckon Mamelo is going to be there in the finish. I'd be very surprised if it isn't, and I wouldn't be surprised if Mamelo wins the race, but I'm going to put it in third. And then fourth is Almandin, last year's Melbourne Cup winner. I think this year's race is a little bit stronger. I'm not faulting it because I'm not putting it outside the top three because of its Bart Cummings performance, because its performance before that was sensational. But I think this year is a stronger field this year than last year's Melbourne Cup. There's no reason why Almandin can't win it, but I just think that the three horses that I've chosen over it are very strong, and I think that they will beat Almandin. It is very hard to go back to back in the Melbourne Cup. It can be done, but I don't think Almandin will do it in 2017. So that is my tips for the 2017 Melbourne Cup. Let me know your tips down in the comments below, and time now to go on to my roughie. And my roughie of the race is Big Duke, who has really impressed me this year in particular. I saw this horse actually run in real life in Hobart in the Hobart Cup. It got beat that day, came second. It then went on to run in the Launceston Cup. These are two races that are probably not as popular in the racing circles, but It won the Launceston Cup after getting beaten the Hobart Cup. Never thought that it would be running in a Melbourne Cup just because it's not something I really thought about. But then it went on to come third in the Sydney Cup and do very well. And it's been in good form leading into this Melbourne Cup. Yes, it came fourth in its last start at Moonee Valley, but I don't think the track suited it, and it was held up. I like its form, especially its Group 1 form in its recent Group 1s, and I like its form over this sort of distance. The distance is going to suit this horse perfectly. So because of that, and because of the price, I think Big Duke is a roughie to look out for, and I think maybe a couple of dollars on the horse wouldn't do any harm, because I think this horse has a real chance to crack the top 3, if not the top 5. This horse is really good, and I think this distance will definitely suit it, and it has proven itself over this distance before. So Big Duke, roughie for me. Time now to have a look at the rest of the racing program on Emirates Melbourne Cup Day. It is a 10-race program with a couple of Group 3s, a few listed races, and of course the Group 1 Emirates Melbourne Cup, which is being ran at 3 p.m. It's fair to say all races have quality fields. It's fair to say that, and it should be a great day of racing. 10 races. A couple of Group 3 races, a few listed races, a Group 1 race, which is, of course, the feature, and, of course, the feature of the whole year, and that is the Melbourne Cup. It's going to be a sensational day of racing, so make sure you stay hooked to your TV screen, or if you're at the track, stay hooked on the track, because it is going to be another great edition of Emirates Melbourne Cup Day. Cannot wait. I'm very excited. And that brings my 2017 Emirates Melbourne Cup preview to a close. Huge thank you for watching. Of course, if you want to hear more of my tips for Emirates Melbourne Cup Day, stay hooked to my Twitter account on race day. Twitter.com/BevoB5 is the link. Of course, don't forget to like, comment, and share this video, and subscribe to stay tuned for more content on this channel, including an Oaks preview and a Stakes preview, all part of my Melbourne Cup Carnival previews on Bevo B5 Productions. Cannot wait for Oaks Day and Stakes Day, but more importantly, I cannot wait for Melbourne Cup Day. Of course, don't forget to check out my weekly live stream, facebook.com/thebevshow. I go live every Sunday at 8 p.m. For more detail of that, go to the Facebook page. So enjoy Melbourne Cup Day. Enjoy the race itself. I hope you back a winner. It is hard to back a winner in this particular race because there's so many runners. And good luck to Matt Hill on his first call of the Emirates Melbourne Cup as well. Good luck to him. He's called the Spring Racing Carnival beautifully, so I'm looking forward to his call of the 2017 Emirates Melbourne Cup. And until next time, I'm Bev, signing out.